So we, like in our conversations about freedom, we very often get lassoed into talking about the founders or talking about the Declaration of Independence or talking about how old our country is. And these things, I mean, my people have been here for a really long time, and I have my own attachments to things that are very old. But freedom has to be about taking, like, finding the paths that lead from the past into the future. It can't be about cycling back into the past. You can't really go back into the past. And I think a lot of what's wrong in our present political discussion in the US, in the West, much of the world, is the absence of a future. And the Ukrainians made that very clear because the way they're talking about freedom is all about the future. And the problem with the Russians is that the Russians are getting in the way of possible futures, which Ukrainians think are were there and need to be grasped again. And then the final thing is what I think about as the Zelensky paradox. So a few months into the war, I talked to President Zelensky for the first time about the war, and he was really helpful with me on a number of these points. But the one thing which I wanted to talk to him about was why he had stayed, why he had chosen to stay at a time, if we remember, in February 2022, when basically everybody assumed that he was going to flee, that the Ukrainians were going to flee, the Ukrainian army wasn't going to fight, the Ukrainian state was going to collapse. Why do you stay? And this helps me with defining freedom as positive in a different way, in a moral way, which for me is the fundamental thing. I mean, in the conversation we had, what he made clear was he didn't really feel like he had a decision to make. He was going to stay, and he was going to stay because of because of the person he was. He wouldn't be the person he was if he decided to go, if he went. And the reason that's true is because of all of the other choices that he had made before that, which made him the person he was. And I think that's really helpful because when we think of freedom, we often think, well, freedom is just doing what I feel like right now. It's just an impulse. But what you feel like right now, or your impulses, are very often guided by forces that you're not thinking about and that you don't understand. I think freedom has much more to do with being able to choose among moral commitments over time and becoming a person. And then sometimes that person you become in a certain predicament can only really do one thing. And that's precisely because you're free. Right. So I think there are moments where an unfree person will try to run, but a free person will stay, or a free person will think, this is the only thing that I believe that I can do right now, precisely because they are free.